Життя – це шлях. Для кожного свій. Із чого складається шлях тих, хто визначив для себе сенс буття? Чи може їхній приклад допомогти змінитися нам? Дізнайся, яким шляхом ідуть герої нашої програми, і ти зможеш іти своїм. Інший вимір звичайного. Його святість Шріла Бхакти Чайтання Свами Махарадж – видатний релігійний діяч і проповідник. Учень Бхактивіданти Свами Прабхупади – один з духовних лідерів Міжнародного товариства свідомості Кришни. Народився 14 серпня 1951 року в місті Окленд, Нова Зеландія. Навчався у Королівській школі та Королівському коледжі Окленда. 1968 року вступив на філософський факультет Оклендського університету. Займався також журналістикою. 1972 року приїхав до Англії. 1973 року став чернцем-послушником у храмі Радхі Крішни в Лондоні, де близько познайомився з вайшнавською філософією. Першим служінням його було миття посуду та вуличні киртани. Там прийняв від Шріли Прабхупади духовне посвячення. У 1976 році Шріла Бхакти Чайтanya Swami Махарадж почав курувати англійським відділенням видавництва Bhaktivedanta Book Trust. Під його керівництвом було випущено в світ понад 20 книг з вайшнавізму та ведичної культури загальним тиражем більше мільйона екземплярів. У 1980 році був переведений до Південної Африки, де курував діяльність Міжнародного товариства свідомості Крішни як президент храму в Като-Рідж. У другій половині 80-х років виконував обов'язки президента храмів в Йоганнесбурзі та Дурбані. Його лекції та семінари користуються величезним успіхом у всьому світі. Викладає в Вайшнавському інституті вищої освіти у Вріндавані. 1994 року Бхакти Чайтanya Swami Махарадж прийняв зречений спосіб життя – саньясу. З 1998 року член керівної ради Міжнародного товариства свідомості Крішни, курує діяльність товариства в Прибалтиці, Росії, Південно-Африканській Республіці та ряді інших африканських країн.
Здравствуйте. Я очень рада приветствовать вас в этой студии, которая и создана для таких разговоров, которые мы, собственно, и собираемся с вами провести.
She is very happy to have you here in this studio, and they have this program especially for this type of programs when they can share that light, that knowledge with other people who will see this TV program. And the first question that she wants to ask you is, are the concept, the notion of faith and spirituality, are they identical or they are different?
They have similarities, they're interwoven with each other to some degree. They also have differences. If you're attracted towards spiritual life, you have an interest, that's a type of faith. Faith underlies all people's lives in this world. But faith is very helpful in spiritual life, to really absorb oneself and really seriously practice that faith has to be there.
А вы приходили
When you came to this practice, you came having some kind of faith or rather creed, or you were interested in some kinds of...
Где был тот поворотный момент, который привел вас на эту дорогу?
I was more interested in philosophy and understanding life and understanding myself.
Восточная философия?
Eastern philosophies. At those times, it was the times of hippies. The main impetus for your coming to this practice was the understanding that the life is somewhat different from life that we are taught at the school.
I was not a classic hippie. I was involved to some degree, but I was more of a philosopher, trying to understand myself and my place in life.
Yeah, but
And in many ways, the hippies, they had good ideas, but they also had some bad ideas. So I couldn't really embrace the whole hippie way of life. So I was studying philosophy, and I was a journalist. I wanted to write.
Вы хотели писать о чем?
I wanted to write novels, particularly.
Ну, романы это должны были быть художественное произведение, или это все-таки был все равно поиск пути к Богу?
just usual ordinary novels or novels about the search for the purpose of life?
Yeah, my initial ideas were more like the search, a person searching for truth and for what is really natural and beneficial in life.
А ведь когда люди идут в журналистику,
Usually journalists, they usually have something to say to others, and that's why they want to write. In your case, did you have anything to say about this world, either positive or maybe negative, that the life is not as it is taught at the school? And the second question is how old you were when you started doing that, what you are speaking here?
Yeah, I took up journalism. I got my first job when I was 17. I just turned 17. And it was just to practice writing, so that when I became a little more mature, I had some knowledge of writing and I was able to express myself. So it was just to facilitate my launching into a career of writing stories, initially about life and people trying to understand life. I had a weekly surfing column, and I used to road test motor cars for a number of newspapers.
это в Новой Зеландии было еще.
Да.
Вы рождены в Новой Зеландии. Но вы ведь из достаточно респектабельной семьи, насколько мне понятно. А чего же не хватало вот 17-летнему юноше, которому нужно было еще что-то...
I know that your mother was a music teacher, and I know that you were from the successful family in New Zealand. So what was lacking in your life that forced you to take up this practice?
I went to an Anglican school from the day I turned 5 till just after I turned 17. But I had many questions, and unfortunately they couldn't answer them. I became a bit of a nuisance for them.
Но ведь англиканская школа не еще достаточно религиозная.
Your questions that you were putting to them were annoying to them, or what? Because the Anglican Church is kind of traditional church, and they could answer many questions. So
They tried to answer. I was not very satisfied. What is the soul? They talk about the soul. They couldn't tell me what is it, what does it look like, what does it do, and things like
and
that.
what is the soul?
Well, we are the soul. We are eternal spiritual person. And these bodies are basically just like vehicle.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, dress, vehicle. We are like the drivers of the vehicle.
The concept of the soul and the concept of spirit, are they different?
We would say they're not, but one would have to understand what one means or what is meant by the terms. Like now, I'm based in Africa. As soon as you say spirit, they think ghost. But when we say spirit, we're not talking about a ghost at all. We would rather say spiritual, that the nature of the soul is that it is spiritual.
Дух, ну, в некоторых, я не знаю, в традициях, да, ну, как я для себя это понимаю, это вот то и, ну, вот та божественная природа, вот то, в чем, ну, как бы есть зерно нашего существа. Душа это субстанция, обладающая более эмоциональной.
As far as I can understand from my reading of different books, the spirit is the source of our existence, and the soul is that emotional part which is taking birth again and again. Am I correct in my understanding or not?
We are all eternal spiritual souls. And we don't have a soul, but we are the soul. We are eternal, we don't die, we're not born, we don't die. And we're fully conscious, and we're fully blissful. This is the spiritual nature of the soul. But in this world, people identify with the body. The body's temporary, prone to ignorance, and not very blissful, and often suffering.
The suffering is our reaction to whatever is happening in our lives or in the world. So we have that decision.
Well, suffering means it hurts. Different things hurt different people. Spiritual life means that we don't want to keep going through all of that, all those difficulties. We'd rather rise above it to the spiritual level, and then you're not affected by those sufferings, those painful things.
It does not happen to us anymore, or we develop some kind of different attitude towards that.
Yeah, it's not that it does necessarily stop happening, but you rise above it, and so you're not affected by it. Rome was not built in one day.
А понятие кармических обременений.
Do you acknowledge the concept of karma and the karmic baggage that we are taking with us from different previous lifetimes?
It's a very foundational principle. It's a very foundational principle.
То есть то, что ничто не приходит бесследно, и то,
So this is the concept of some kind of balance and reward for everything we have done in the past, right?
Well, in a sense, but it's a little more specific. Karma means action and reaction. Two parts of one thing. You do the action and you cannot escape the reaction. You know, many people, they will do some action, they don't want the reaction. But it's like when you have a coin with the head side and the tail side. If you have the head side, you have the tail side. So you do the activity, the reaction will come. You cannot dodge it or somehow escape.
А искупление или раскаяние, покаяние, есть такие понятия в православии.
When I perform some kind of sinful activities and then I repent, we have that concept in Christianity.
Yeah, we have the same concept, and repenting and accepting responsibility and regretting one's nonsense, it's helpful, it's purifying spiritually. It helps, but it won't completely overcome the reactions to what you've done.
When a person does something wrong, some misdeed, he can do some pious work which is 7 times bigger than that sinful activities that he has done. And in that way he can counteract.
Tradition, that's called prayaschita or atonement. But according to our tradition, the one does not cancel out the other, but rather you get both reactions. So it's not like a complete solution. You have to go
The higher
to a
way
higher
is
level of
the way or the path of committing pious activities and doing good to others and also to serve others.
No, at least in our tradition, that's just, you could say, a higher level of the same material sphere. But we're talking now about going beyond anything material, be it good, bad, indifferent. So the idea is that we serve God and we can help people through serving God. And then one becomes free from karma.
Служение Богу через служение людям.
No, serving people through serving God.
To discern the will of God through the people who surround us.
Not exactly. The will of God is there in Scripture. It's clear, basically clear, what is the will of God. But then we need to help people to sort of tune into the will of God and become connected with God.
А это понимание приходит изнутри?
And this understanding comes from within.
Well, it's a combination of coming from God, from our spiritual master and other teachers, and then it comes from within. It's confirmed and manifests within. It's not just some inspiration which comes from within, although that is also part of it.
Is there any feeling that we can be sure that we are on the right path? That feeling comes from within or from the spiritual master?
You know, these things come, they have their roots, their source in the Lord and the scriptures that He gives and coming through the spiritual masters. But then one certainly feels that confirmation of satisfaction and completeness when one applies these things nicely.
Это чувство.
Or there's definitely a feeling, but it's not.
It is not a theoretical knowledge or the text from a book.
There's a feeling which comes, but it's coming because of the application of the knowledge and the spiritual training. Just emotions and feelings on their own, without confirmation and like that real insight, well, you have to be careful with feeling.
We live in a difficult time, and many people they are in the suspended condition. You know, they don't have any foundation, and at the same time they don't have any clear goal to aspire for. So in that situation, they feel distress, perhaps even more than they can feel from some things that are real distress in our lives. So in that situation, what should be the first step for such people to undertake, to follow the different rules and regulations, or what?
First step would be to associate with devotees or with real spiritual people.
А как я могу различить внутри себя, что есть по-настоящему, да, что таковым является, а не за такового себя выдает? Ну вот, там, кроме вас, да,
How can I tell from within? How can I tell what is real and what is false? Because we have many different traditions, many different actually cults, and many different people who claim to be true but they are not, many different books. And what should I do in order to ascertain that such and such tradition or practice is true?
Yeah, the thing is that if what you are getting is true, there'll be two results. One is that you'll really start developing some attachment for God, some real attraction to God and serving God. And second is you'll find that you're becoming free from material desires and just different material influences. These are simple rules of thumb to see if we're making a little progress. Just like if you're sick, you have to see a doctor. So which doctor? You have to see the patients going to the doctors and see, are they actually becoming cured? Are they actually becoming healthy and strong again?
In the Krishna consciousness movement, different social realizations like having a family, having a job, and some others, they are not forbidden. In fact, I think they are encouraged. That devotees they have that.
Sure, everyone's an individual, and you have to see what sort of situation in life is suitable for the different individual. For some people to live a monastic type of life, it's suitable for them. For others, it's not suitable. They're inclined to family life. Let them have that, but in the service of the Lord.
I'm just trying to understand, austere way of life is not an attempt to escape from the real life that we are all living in.
Well, you know, if there's a lot of pain in life, it would be good to escape the pain. But here, we're taking responsibility for developing our lives, developing ourselves positively, and becoming better people who can offer more to the world. And this is the idea for all devotees, whether they live monastically, whether they live as family people. The idea is that we are to develop spiritually and help the world.
То есть вот это вот служение Богу через служение людям, это вот в вашем случае ваше кураторство достаточно большим территориальным полем.
You are in charge of Krishna consciousness movement in many different countries, and do you know at least approximately the number of souls that you are responsible for?
То есть это есть аспект вашей ответственности?
This is one aspect of your responsibility, right?
To say who is really a follower and who's just a friend. But between the followers and the friends in the areas where I'm involved, we have a good few 100,000 people.
You are taking responsibility for all those hundreds of thousands.
Yes, yes. In important respects, I've got responsibility like that.
Это добровольное решение ваше, да? В какой-то момент получилось, что этот путь, он
So, in all those areas, you are giving yourself to all those people, you are serving them, and this is not the austere way of life, right? You're all the time associating with them, and you're trying to help them. So, in that way, by serving those people, you are serving God, right?
That's correct. By involving them in Krishna consciousness, trying to give them Krishna consciousness, yeah, that's a very important service to Krishna, to God.
А в какой момент, то есть в каком возрасте?
Did you have any turning point in your life that you understood that you do not need anything for yourself anymore in your life?
I moved into our temple in London on January the 7th, 1973. Shortly before that, just a few weeks before that, it was becoming quite clear that this seems to be the right path for me. And then when I actually came and I moved in and I got fully involved, then very quickly I could see this is where I fit in.
Ну, вам было 22 года, это очень, это достаточно ранний возраст. 21. Это очень ранний возраст.
You were very young at that time, and didn't you have any temptation to start tasting material life, like girls, music, etc.?
I'd already tasted it quite a bit. As Jimi Hendrix said, are you experienced? I was quite experienced. But having said that, as I was involved, getting more and more involved and like that, of course, sometimes some ideas come up. Maybe I should go back to the old ways. But Krishna consciousness was just so nice, I never seriously considered going back to it.
The question is that we came to this material world at some point, at some particular point, and the question is why? What we did so terrible so that we have to suffer so much here in order to return back? What is the cause of our coming to this material world? Because in our childhood we used to catch a hold of our mother's arm, and it was safe for us, but then after that it was unsafe. And what is the cause of that? Maybe just like some religious traditions, they say that it is a reward for actually we have to suffer in order to counteract our original sin. What is the real cause for that?
According to our Krishna conscious tradition, we were with God. That's our natural position. We were there. But then somehow we got the idea, let me enjoy and become the main enjoyer like him. It's a very bad idea, but sometimes people get bad ideas and they think, why did I do that? So it was, a bad decision. We came to this world and now we're struggling so much. But by the grace of God, He's made this world in such a way that gradually we can get the idea that this is not my natural home, and then we develop the desire to go back home, back to Godhead.
But this desire to go back home, back to Godhead, makes us going in circles, not being able to find that path.
If you get good association, you won't go around in circles, you'll go straight back. And if you're very sincere, Krishna, God, will arrange that you get good association. Обратно Богу.
And it happens according to my being ready.
Yes, ready or having a sincere desire. That's the readiness.
Am I correct in my understanding that this process, at some point, it becomes kind of painful and not so pleasant, because we have to deal with our ego, and we have to get rid of our selfish nature, and this selfish nature is very difficult to give up, and therefore we experience some pain.
Well, any serious endeavor of any type in this world, there'll be some struggle. If you want to become a big business person, you have to work very hard. But here, there's some challenges, but because it's spiritual, it's purely spiritual, it's very nice, very blissful.
Blissful, jolly. And this makes it different from the regular labor or job that one has to perform, because in this process one doesn't feel distressed because he feels higher happiness.
Yes?
Well, yes, the more one gets into it, the more one experiences happiness, even doing some difficult service.
А что есть природа эго? Это, в принципе, эго это и есть вот та стена, которую мы выстраиваем себе во взаимоотношениях с Богом на самом же деле, когда имеет значение «я хочу», «я
So
знаю».
what is the nature of that ego? Is it some kind of wall between us and the God?
We distinguish between real ego and false ego. Real ego means what I actually am. Ego is a Latin word. It means I am. But if we get some wrong idea that I think I'm something which I'm not, that's false ego. If I think I'm some big, important person, everyone should respect me so much, that sort of idea, generally, that's false ego. And it's coming from that basic point that we left God with the idea that I want to be the enjoyer, I want to be important. So originally it starts in the presence of God. And then here we are in the material world, and we're thinking the same way and trying to establish ourselves as very important. But real ego means I am the eternal servant of God, because that's what I am. It's not that there should be no sense of I, like I should cease to exist. But now I'm the real me.
That real me is a part of the divine.
The real me is divine and is the energy of God, divine, one of his divine spiritual energies. It's not that I am God. I'm me, God is God. But God is the supreme spirit. I'm a little spiritual person. Something like, you could say, like a spark coming from the fire.
But the spark has that potentiality to become a fire. The fire can be ignited from the spark. At the same time, there is another analogy with the drop from the ocean and the ocean. Drop and the ocean are the same in quality, but they are different in quantity.
That's true.
Да, это правда.
That's true. These examples, they're just to give an idea. It's not like they're capturing the whole picture.
No,
Because the drop of water from the ocean, you can put it back in the ocean, it will merge with the ocean. So there's like a limited utility for that sort of example. But certainly the fact is that we are spiritual in quality, God is spiritual in quality, we share that qualitative nature.
В этом воплощении, в одной жизни, в одном воплощении.
Can we make this lifetime our last birth in this material world?
You can definitely do it, there's no doubt.
Но а не есть ли вот это желание, опять же, эгоистичным желанием, то есть я хочу избавиться от страданий, поэтому я хочу быстро, чтобы вот этого вот здесь всего не было.
Is it not a selfish desire that we want to get rid of suffering, and therefore we want to get liberated? And is it not some kind of attachment that we have to actually get rid of in the spiritual life?
It's a good desire to get out of the sufferings of this world, to get back to our natural home, that's a really good desire.
Желание.
But it's done through giving up the false ego idea that I'm the enjoyer of this world. And it's done by cultivating the idea that I'm the very humble servant and I should just serve the Lord and help other people to serve Him. We don't want to go back alone.
Мы хотим вместе.
Конечно, конечно.
Мы хотим помочь другим людям.
We identify other people as parts of the divinity.
Конечно.
А вот когда вы решили
Your parents thought about your decision to join the temple, to move to the temple.
Initially, they were a little confused, but then they went and visited the temple. They were in New Zealand, I was in England. They went to the temple, they met the devotees, and they became friendly, particularly my father became friends with devotees. So generally, they were supportive.
Но в них же было тогда, получается,
They didn't force upon you, impose upon you their conceptions of how you should live your life. They were, so to say, ready to accept your decision that this is my life that I want to live.
Basically, they were ready, yeah, and they did. My father, he would visit our temple from time, like every month, do some service there. He was very fond of our food. He would visit our restaurant on a regular basis.
We do not see very often that kind of readiness from on the part of relatives or parents to accept, to support the decision of their children in that way. So, in your case, was it caused by your personal advancement as a soul from the previous lives, or it was your personal decision and their personal decision that they are ready to accept whatever you want to do?
You know, they were very liberally minded people, and they were sincerely interested in my happiness. So initially, they were not sure, what is this? Is it good? But when they saw that I was happy and they saw it was nice, they were supportive.
I was trying to understand if we can program ourselves in that way that we take birth in such particular family where the parents are ready for such decisions, or we cannot do that and it depends solely upon your own advancement from the previous life.
You know, it's possible to train yourself and develop your life in such a way that you will take birth in the next life in some particular situation. But rather than try to develop this life so you take birth in like some nice material situation, better to develop your life so you go back to Godhead.
Если получится. Человеческая природа все равно берет свое иногда.
Это возможно.
Это возможно легко, но это нелегко. Для этого нужно знать, то, что было в прошлом. Для этого нужно знать там историю своих
In
воплощений.
order to do that, should we know all the history of our previous incarnations, what we have done in all our lifetimes, or it is not at all important?
It's not very important, yeah. The main thing is to focus on our spiritual development and our relationship with Krishna. And due to the influence of the mode of ignorance in this world, generally people cannot remember previous lifetimes. We cannot remember so much from this lifetime or even from today. But Prabhupada, our spiritual master, he said that when you become free from ignorance in a pure spiritual state, then you can remember all your lifetime.
А как можно понять,
How can we understand that we are completely free from the ignorance? Because the human, they are prone to commit mistakes, and how can we understand? When we are free from ignorance, we can do that by reading books, by associating with spiritually minded people, or what?
See, the process of the different practices, the different activities in the way of life of Krishna consciousness gradually cleanses out one's ignorance, one's karma, one's conditioning. So step by step, there's a process of purification and of positive internal development. And on the perfect level, Krishna, God, will walk up to you and introduce himself. Then you know you've made it.
Is this concept of Krishna consciousness is identical to such concepts, the nature of Buddha in Buddhism or the consciousness of Christ in Christianity, or not?
Ultimately, it's the same thing. We would say that it's more accessible, it's easier in Krishna consciousness to achieve that. That's why we're in Krishna consciousness. It was better in some other process, we would do that.
Просто существуют еще разные концепции, например, там в Адвайте, там, концепция недеяния, там, у вас путь служения, наоборот, деяния, но деяние правильного, через распознавание правильного деяния. То есть все равно путь, он в действии.
Concept in Advaita of non-action, but I can see that your process is the opposite. You have the process of service, which is action, but proper action. And is it correct or not? And then another question is that, and in all the different traditions, there is that concept of knowledge for everybody, for everyone, and the knowledge which is more secret, more confidential for some limited group of people. Do you have anything like that in your tradition?
Yes. Well, the more confidential knowledge is more related to one's personal relationship with the Lord. And the more general service, knowledge is just about the principle and the general practices for developing yourself spiritually. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks specifically about action and inaction. And he says that an intelligent person can see action within inaction, and inaction within action. It may sound a little confusing, but the basic idea is this, that if we are active in the service of the Lord, that activity is on the spiritual platform. Yes. So there's no karmic reaction. The karmic reactions are on the lower material level. So now you're active in spiritual activity, but on the material level, it's as if, well, you actually are inactive materially. So the devotees are very active, preaching, serving Krishna in different ways, but it's inaction materially.
А с материальной точки зрения, если я действую, побуждаемая благими намерениями, если это там, или не бывает там...
If I act in a material world, if I act being driven by some pious motives, is it karma or not? Is it pious karma or akarma at all?
That's a good question. If we're simply trying to help people do something nice in material terms without connection with God, then it's material, but it's good material. So you will get good material reaction. Maybe you'll get lots of money, and then you will enjoy with that money, and then the money will be finished, and you'll be back to the beginning again. So you see, material pious activity is not spiritual, and ultimately will not help us spiritually. So service to man is not service to God, but service to God is service to man. And we should try to help people to engage in the service of God.
If I try to do that, to engage others in the service of God, but for instance, when I talk to you, I feel some pleasure, some satisfaction. Is it my good karma or not?
It's a blessing from Krishna. It's a spiritual experience. You have come to a higher level, at least for the time being.
So this kind of activity, which gives me absolutely human pleasure and bliss of associating with you, is not a karmic is not an activity which will have a karmic reaction, which will bind me to this material world.
No, it's spiritual activity which will liberate you from the material world. You're doing good.
How important is meeting a spiritual master who can give us instructions in your practice? Because I know from other traditions that it is said that if you haven't met a master in this lifetime, it was useless. It was waste of time.
Well, it's very important. And if you associate with the devotees and really get involved, then you will meet a spiritual master, and you'll be able to accept a spiritual master. And the spiritual master will help you in personal ways to make progress in ways that are relevant to you as an individual.
In our Orthodox Christianity, we see that people can attend the church every so often, but in your tradition, the spiritual master make our progress more fast. Is it correct?
That's correct.
Do you have any personal desires that you would like to realize, to fulfill personally?
Yes, there are different types of service that I like to do and which I want to develop more. I write books. I do photography of sacred places because I'm from a journalistic background, a writing background. I've made many movies, mainly of sacred places, and I like doing these things. But I'm very happy just moving around the areas I'm involved in and meeting people, interacting with people, lecturing sometimes. Oh, it's a great life.
Святые места это в разных традициях, да? Это просто святые места храмы.
Sacred places, by sacred places you mean different sacred places from different other traditions, not only from India, from all over the world or what?
From our own tradition. I feel our tradition is special. Not to disrespect other tradition, but this is special, therefore I'm living it, and it's nice to capture the different aspects of it and present them to other people.
In retrospect, when you think about that period of time when you were 21 years old, when you joined this movement, and when you are here now, do you think that you have done in your life everything that you would like to do, or there is something that you still want to do?
I'm very happy. I have been very happy doing what I've been doing. I would like to do what I'm doing better, because I'm doing it as a service to Krishna, as a service to my spiritual master Prabhupada. So I would like to offer them more, and I'd like to offer them better.
Is there any human ability to offer more?
I think, I think we can always give more of our heart. I think it's unlimited what's there within the heart. And no matter how much we give, we can always give more. But I don't feel that there's some different activity which I have not done, and I really want to do that. It's a personal relationship. It looks like a process, do this, don't do that, some rules are there and so on. But actually, it's the development of a personal relationship. And it's an eternal relationship, and it can be developed unlimitedly. So I think we are in the beginning stages, and there's a lot more to come, It's already nice. It's going to get better.
I can understand that you can see much more that I can understand that you see. Can I ask you to tell audience who are watching us to say something personal, some personal message to us?
I think you, personally, have great spiritual potential. I think you've already developed some, but I think I'm sure you can develop more. So for you personally, I'd suggest that you could introduce a few spiritual practices. I don't know what you're doing already, but you could chant some mantras, particularly Hare Krishna mantra, the most important and powerful spiritual sound. And I'm sure if you're not already doing it, I'm sure you'd find it. It helps in whatever spiritual activities you're doing. If someone is a Christian, they'll become better Christian. And we have experience of that. And for the people in general, the viewers out there in TV land, I would say, associate with our devotees and like this, get a little involved in some spiritual activity. If that's difficult for people, then at least they should try to give some more charity. When they eat, whatever they eat, first of all, they could, within their minds, within their hearts, offer whatever food they're going to eat to the Lord. Some suggestion.
Есть такое слово, понятие сатсанг. Я не знаю, говорят ли
There is that concept of satsanga, and I do not know if I should thank for that, but I would like to thank you for that experience, and I'm very grateful to you and to God for that wonderful experience.
This is satsang. We are having satsang.
Спасибо за время, за все, что вложено в эту беседу.
I do not know how to properly express my gratitude, but I would like to thank you from the bottom of my heart for that mood and that atmosphere that you have created here in our program, and I'm very blissful and happy for having you here and for your association, for everything you did
Я
here.
очень счастлив тоже. Огромное спасибо.
Життя – це шлях. Для кожного свій. Із чого складається шлях тих, хто визначив для себе сенс буття? Чи може їхній приклад допомогти змінитися нам? Дізнайся, яким шляхом ідуть герої нашої програми, і ти зможеш іти своїм. Інший вимір звичайного.